you for more. Meanwhile, to talk about Prime Minister's address and the diaspora program, joining me are two very special guests. Let me welcome Ambassador Mohan Kumar, former senior diplomat, and also Professor Swasti Rao, foreign affairs expert. Good evening and welcome to both of you. Ambassador Kumar, if I can come to you first. Prime Minister in his address breaks into Hindi, Bhojpuri, English, and there's so many ways in which he invokes the civilizational ties, and he talks about how it sort of shapes the future of India-Mauritius relations. How do you reflect upon the points that Prime Minister touched in his speech?
So thank you for having me. I think I'll touch on points made by the Prime Minister, which are, I think, obvious enough, but I'll also, if you allow me, touch on the geopolitical significance of this visit, which is huge. So in terms of the Prime Minister's own speech, I thought it was fantastic that he broke into Bhojpuri when required, English, and of course Hindi. And so I think he took the crowd really into rapture. So that is something that he does so well. But I think the fact of the matter is 70% of the population in Mauritius is of Indian origin. There is a cultural center, which is the largest Indian cultural center in anywhere in the world. There is a World Hindi Secretariat in Mauritius. So the cultural links, the heritage links, the civilizational links are, I think, obvious. And whatever Prime Minister has done in terms of emphasizing, I thought it's significant. He said to the people and the audience that, listen, you are not a strategic partnership country, but you're family. And I think that is the main message that I take from the Prime Minister's speech. The Prime Minister has repeatedly said that if there is a crisis, we will be the first respondent. And alternatively, if there is prosperity in Mauritius, India will celebrate prosperity in Mauritius. So I think he made his message very clear. Do you want me to talk about the geopolitical aspects now or a little later?
I'll just come to you for that, sir. But let me quickly get an opening comment from Professor Swasti Rao as well. Professor Rao, your thoughts on the invocations that Prime Minister Narendra Modi made in the larger context of India-Mauritius ties. What would you say he achieved in his address?
Well, I mean, it is very clear that he went there to build upon ties that are already excellent. And in the previous section, we have sort of dealt quite deep into what is the significance of Mauritius in the Western Indian Ocean region, the importance of the Indian Ocean region per se in terms of being India's primary maritime theater. And I think the fact that Prime Minister, inaugurated over 20 India-funded projects, that's on his list, right? From capacity building to community-linked infrastructure and all of that, I think it's testimony to the fact that India is very serious about it. And I think in the larger scheme of things, this really makes it wonderful to analyze, because these are smaller states, but these are large ocean states as well. So small island states, but large ocean states, especially after UNCLOS has been adopted in the early 80s, which has given massive EEZ to these very small islands, and that itself has made them very important, relevant, significant players, especially in the maritime century that we are living in. So, I think one must know that India is also developing quite important infrastructure, naval infrastructure, etc., on islands around Mauritius. That's quite important because the bigger powers also have their own bases out there. So I think putting everything together, since it's just an introductory comment, so I'm limiting myself to all these things, but it is a comprehensive relationship. It is very important, pretty much in tune with India's Sagar vision, and I think it's going to go a long way in trying to sort of revamp India's position as a net security actor and provider, especially in the Indian Ocean region.
Right, Ambassador Mohan Kumar, that point that Prime Minister made that you just highlighted, not a strategic partner, but a family. What is the significance of this kind of diplomacy in the larger geopolitics of the Indian Ocean, which is a contested space? What kind of relationship are we trying to highlight and celebrate here?
So it's an absolutely crucial relationship, and I think I'll take off from where my colleague and co-panelists left, if you like. This is the Western Indian Ocean, to be precise.
Yes.
And we've always had a problem in terms of the Indo-Pacific. The United States, first in the initial stage, did not consider Western Indian Ocean as part of the Indo-Pacific theater. They now do, and that's a change we have been able to reap from them. We have tried to persuade them that, listen, this has got to be part of theater. Even so, this is really split between two commands. If you look at the American command, the Central Command, and the African command, this is split. So we still have that issue. Now, the Western Indian Ocean, if you consider it, Mauritius is really the sentinel of the Western Indian Ocean. In many ways, it's the gateway to Western Indian Ocean and Africa. It has it's a small country, but it has an exclusive economic zone which runs into millions of square kilometers. What we have done essentially is to empower Mauritius to do three things. One, it monitors its own exclusive economic zone much better thanks to us. We have given them patrol aircraft, we've given them radars, there are radar stations all over, and we've also provided them access to the Information Fusion Center in Gurgaon without reciprocity. So what we have given them is enormous clout and ability to monitor their own exclusive economic zone. That's the first. Second, this is an area that is rife in terms of piracy, human trafficking, drug trafficking. So we have tried to give them the ability to tackle those things. And the fact that we are going to sign, or we have signed, a white shipping agreement between Mauritius and India means that we will be able to give them maritime domain awareness that we can share with them of this vital region, so that in real time they will be able to tackle the kind of things I'm talking about, piracy, trafficking, and so on. Last but not least, let me spell it out very clearly. The dragon in the ocean, as I call it, yes. China has had a semi-permanent presence in Western Indian Ocean. We have found it difficult to counter this on our own. So we need strategic partners like Mauritius. We need countries like France. US is not heavily invested in the Western Indian Ocean. They are invested in the Western Pacific. So all in all, this relationship between Mauritius and India assumes tremendous importance, and that explains the kind of investment we are making. It's almost $1 billion over the last decade, yes. $740 million in loans, but the rest of it in grants. And I think the kind of infrastructure that we have built in terms of the civil service college that we are going to do, the health center that we are doing. So I think it's a relationship which has which combines things like Bhojpuri and 70% of descent Indian, the linguistic links that we have between the two countries, the fact that we have decided to give them the OCI card. I remember when I was ambassador in Paris and I would go to Reunion Islands, not far from Mauritius, the only demand of the Indian origin people was, give us OCI card. We want nothing else from our motherland. Just give us OCI card. I'm particularly happy that the government of India has taken a decision to give the OCI card to the 7th generation of Indian origin Mauritians, starting with the president and the prime minister. So all in all, this is really a crucial strategic partner in a very, very important region. It is absolutely critical to the success of the Sagar vision that the Prime Minister explained and outlined in 2015. And if we have to have meaningful control and use of the Indian Ocean, I'm afraid it's not possible without getting Mauritius on board and getting countries like France on board. So I think from a geopolitical perspective, I can hardly think of a more important visit than the one the Prime Minister is undertaking to Mauritius.
Okay, we'll continue this conversation. Let's listen into some of the important bites that came in Prime Minister's address, addressing this community event in Mauritius. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said a lot of families from Mauritius were unable to attend the gathering at the Mahakumbh, and hence he has himself got the holy waters from the 45-day-long gathering for the people of Mauritius.
मैं जानता हूं कि मॉरिशस के अनेक परिवार अभी-अभी महाकुंभ में भी होकर आए हैं, लेकिन मुझे ये भी पता है कि मॉरिशस के मेरे अनेक परिवारजन चाहते हुए भी एकता के इस महाकुंभ में नहीं आ पाए। मुझे आपकी भावनाओं का ध्यान है, इसलिए मैं आपके लिए पवित्र संगम का और महाकुंभ के उसी समय का पवित्र जल साथ लेकर आया हूं। इस पवित्र जल को कल यहां गंगा तालाब को अर्पित किया जाएगा।
Prime Minister talking about the Kumbh Mela, and for those of the people of Mauritius who could not attend the Mela, he got the holy waters for them. Professor Swasti Rao, one of the many civilizational linkages that Prime Minister invoked, this was a special one, carrying holy water from the Sangam for people of Mauritius. What is your sense of what do these themes and elements, because it's a deep spiritual link as well. Prime Minister invokes Lord Ram and the manner in which it sort of links the indentured labour to their homeland, to their motherland. How do you also see the significance of Prime Minister invoking these themes several times in his address?
So, Shubhendu, how can one actually overstate the significance of these cultural symbolism and these linkages? Like I said, that it's been there. It's been a part of, like I said, about our shared cultural linkages, our shared historical legacy, our shared identity, our shared spiritual linkages. And I think that's been there for a very long time, for centuries now. Why is it that 70% of the people that live in Mauritius have an Indian origin? Why is it so that I was just seeing these rushes and these visuals that were coming, and it was so heartening to see most of the women dressed in saris. In fact, you would not find as many women dressed in saris in Delhi today as we found there. So these things are extremely heartening. But I think what needs to be underscored here is not the obvious. What needs to be underscored is the fact that it's certainly Prime Minister Modi's very personalized style of conducting this kind of people-centric diplomacy that really catches our attention, that really makes it truly special, because it has been there for centuries. But it takes somebody like the Prime Minister with a vision like that to come up with a very pro-people, pro-culture kind of an attitude, kind of an approach that sort of just stitches it together so beautifully. And it certainly should make every Indian so proud, of how far our civilizational linkages go. That's one part. The other part is about waters. Yes, of course, it's been the traditional, I would say, practice in Indian culture to really get the holy waters from the Sangam or from the Ganges to different parts of, wherever Indians are living. And I think most traditional Indian households would have, at the place of their worship, some kind of holy water from the Ganges. So I think it's pretty much a part of Indian identity. And I think that's precisely what Prime Minister has done. And I'm sure he must have won thousands of hearts with this very, very endearing kind of a thing, kind of an action. But that's about the traditional waters. I do not specialize in, sadly, in the cultural, so to say, capital of our country. But I can definitely tell you that whether it's the holy waters of the Ganges or from Sangam, or whether it is the waters today where we are trying to establish maritime domain awareness, I think the stream is pretty unbroken. And I think, just building on what Ambassador Kumar was saying, because that is really the kind of work that I myself do, which is that yes, all of this brings together, wonderfully the fact that there is Indian presence, Indian strong, I would say, linkages in Mauritius. There is very close to Mauritius, the Reunion Island, which belongs to the French, where we have special rights. Of course, we have access to that island. And then there's also this island of, Agalega, where we are developing infrastructure just in order to sort of revamp our position and our presence, in extremely important waters. So I think it kind of all stitches together very beautifully. The Prime Minister and his unique sense of people-centric diplomacy, culture-centric diplomacy, just makes it very beautiful to observe. But at the heart of it, yes, this is what we have to do. We have to empower these small islands with respect to their capabilities, the maritime domain awareness capabilities, and the fact that Mauritius is a member of the IFC or IOR would really help now that when we would have a white paper agreement with them, which would really give it some more meat in terms of the frameworks to take it forward. So I see that the waters have pretty much a broken flow from the culture to geostrategy and of how we're looking at a shared, safer future tomorrow.
Right, and we're heading for a short break here. Our conversation continues on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Mauritius. A short break here.
हो गया इंतजाम।
किसका?
गुड्डी की फीस का।
दिखा। 20,000 का लोन तुरंत। पता है कौन दे रहा है, ब्याज कितना है? लोन विनियमित संस्थानों से ही लें और कर्ज उतना जितनी जरूरत, वो भी जांच कर। हो गया इंतजाम। पगार एडवांस में भेजिए।
आरबीआई कहता है,
सही वित्तीय बर्ताव करे आपका बचाव।
What is more important, fixing the present or planning for the future? Innovators across the globe rethinking the way we live to secure a better future for us.
I found out about the Rahi trade-in scheme. I went to the agency and discovered that I could receive a subsidy for this e-rickshaw.
We basically mirror that same process, but instead of water for one of our solutions, we use blocks, powering about 35,000 homes.
Our goal is to send a message that it's important to fight for better urban air quality, and I think Liquid 3 sends that message.
We prepare fish amino acid by mixing the fish waste with jaggery. It is also an excellent organic fertilizer for plants and trees.
We're moving from the lab stage to industrial scale production. We still have a few challenges to deal with, but we've seen that it works.
दवा से क्या होगा? अरे बेटा, मैं बिना दवाई के ठीक हो जाऊंगी।
अब तो ठीक हूँ, दवाई क्यों खाना?
अरे डॉक्टर तो बोलते ही रहते हैं, मुझे पता है, दवाई बस 3 दिन ही खानी है।
ये सब नजर आता था क्योंकि दवाई की घर में एंट्री होते ही पूरा आर्थिक संतुलन बिगड़ जाता था। इसलिए हमारे अपने उसे टालने के बहाने ढूंढते रहते थे। पर जब से जन औषधि केंद्रों की शुरुआत हुई है, तब से बहानों का ये पिटारा बंद हुआ है और पिछले 6 सालों में 15,000 से अधिक जन औषधि केंद्रों पर 50 से 90% तक कम दाम पर दवाएं मिलती हैं। 2,000 से ज्यादा दवाएं और 300 से अधिक सर्जिकल उपकरण उपलब्ध हैं, जिससे देशवासियों के 30,000 करोड़ रुपए बचे हैं।
आज देश भर में पीएम जन औषधि केंद्र इस बात के साक्षी हैं कि हमारी सरकार कितनी संवेदनशीलता से काम कर रही है।
7 मार्च जन औषधि दिवस की यही शुभकामना। सर्वे संतु निरामया।
Welcome back. You're watching this special broadcast on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Mauritius. And Prime Minister Modi, in his just concluded address, said that Mauritius is like mini India and the bond between the two nations has been long-standing based on trusted partnership.
For us, Mauritius is family. This bond is deep and strong. rooted in history, heritage, and the human spirit. Mauritius is also a bridge connecting India to the wider global south. Whether it is investment or infrastructure, commerce or crisis response, India always stands with Mauritius. Indian companies have invested millions of dollars in Mauritius. We have partnered in building critical infrastructure projects for the people of Mauritius. It is boosting growth, creating jobs, and transforming industries.
And Prime Minister Modi added, Mauritius is at the heart of India's Sagar vision. He added that when Mauritius faces a crisis, India is the first responder, and when the country prospers, it is the first to celebrate.
Mauritius, with large ocean territories, needs to secure its resources from illegal fishing, piracy, and crimes. As a trusted and reliable friend, India works with Mauritius to protect your national interests and secure the Indian Ocean region.
And two special guests continue to be with us, Ambassador Mohan Kumar, former senior diplomat, and Professor Swasti Rao, foreign affairs expert. Ambassador Kumar, I'll come to you. While we are listening to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's bites, I think it's also very important for us to reflect on what Dr. Navinchandra Ramgoolam, the Prime Minister of Mauritius, had to say in his address. First, the highest civilian honor bestowed on Prime Minister Narendra Modi becomes the only 5 foreign leaders who've received this award. The Mauritian Prime Minister also talks about India as the motherland, says that there is no sector of Mauritian economy where India has not made important investment. What is the sense of the manner in which Mauritius looks at India as a partner today?
So I think the Mauritian view on India has gone through a couple of phases. Right in the beginning, of course, Mauritius got all this indentured labor, and I'm talking about an early phase. And there I think there were problems of integration within Mauritius, which is natural. You have people with a completely different culture coming in, etc. Then you had a phase in which India was not doing well economically. And I'm talking about the period up until the 1990, when all we were able to tell Mauritius was, listen, we are united by civilizational, cultural, and even blood ties. So why can't we do more, etc. But Mauritius would always ask us, what can you do for us? You know, so, and India was not economically powerful. I think it is in the post-91 phase, and especially now that India has become relatively prosperous, Mauritius looks to India to actually bring to the table, obviously, culture, and that is why I mentioned earlier on that this is one of the largest cultural centers we have anywhere in the world, because the people there genuinely pine for it, and we are able to meet that pent-up demand, if you like. So that is culture. Then there is geopolitics, where Mauritius now is acutely aware that its location is highly strategic in the Western Indian Ocean. So it is quite all right for it to take advantage of it. And India appreciates the location of Mauritius and is able to make strategic investments. I think Professor Rao made a reference to the island, which is the Agalega Island. And that is an important island where we have provided facilities for Mauritians so that there can be joint surveillance. And when there was a cyclone recently last year, they were able to use the facilities of Agalega to tackle and to detect the cyclone and to handle it. So these are things that we have done in terms of strategic investments in Mauritius. So what I want to say is that we are going beyond words. We've gone beyond words. It's one thing to say culture, civilization, and I'm not trying to de-emphasize it. They're extremely important. But at the end of the day, you have to put the money where your mouth is. And that is what we have been able to do with Mauritius. Selective strategic investments have been made, which I think the Mauritians appreciate now. Health center, training of 500 civil servants from Mauritius over the next 5 years. Enforcement Directorate of India to share their expertise with the Mauritian counterpart on black money and money laundering. These are specific concrete areas of cooperation where Mauritius can benefit. The last point I will make is, I think the Prime Minister has this amazing ability, our Prime Minister, to combine diaspora diplomacy with geopolitics. And that is what he has done so successfully in Mauritius. Geopolitically, it's important. I have mentioned a number of reasons why this is so. But then, in one of the earliest meetings I attended with Prime Minister Modi when I was ambassador, he said, don't make a distinction between Indian passport holders and OCI passport holders. You know, traditionally in the Indian embassy, we make a difference. Our first loyalty is we want Indian passport holder. He would tell us, listen, don't.
And there's a very special scene also where the OCI card was handed over to the Mauritian Prime Minister and his wife. A very special moment there. And Professor Swasthi, I'll just have time for a final comment from you as well, ma'am. When Prime Minister says Mauritius is at the heart of the Sagar vision, Ambassador Kumar told us about the strategic investments that India has made. How do we read it in brief? How do we read it against the inroads that China has made in the West Indian Ocean in particular, in that region? What kind of opportunities and challenges lie ahead for India from here on?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'm just building on where Ambassador Mohan Kumar also left, and I think he mentioned that point categorically that, well, one of the things that we have been a little late in arriving at is that we've been trying to now react to China's persistent, I would say, presence and domination, whether it's port infrastructure, whether it's other ways in which China has been present there in that region. It's very much there, and I think I also mentioned to you that we concluded a free trade agreement with Mauritius, but it was only after China did it, etc. So very quickly, I understand that we are now sort of running out of time. So what I would perhaps my key takeaways would be that yes, India's engagement of the smaller island states in the Western Indian Ocean region are extremely relevant to India's larger strategy of the Sagar doctrine. Of course, there's no doubt about it. But I think if you ask me to just wrap up things, I think one needs to understand is that India's maritime, a strategy towards the smaller island countries is not just about Mauritius. Of course, Mauritius is the center in many ways, of course, also because of the cultural and identitarian legacies that we share. But apart from Mauritius, we have to keep in mind what we're doing with Seychelles, with Madagascar, with Comoros, and with all these other islands together, and not forgetting the relevance of the Archipelago islands, and of course, also getting into more triangular frameworks. And therein, I think France's Reunion Island is a very, very good example. So I think a more comprehensive strategy where Mauritius become one of the parts of the larger strategy is something that we need to keep in mind. It is not a zero-sum game, but perhaps a larger comprehensive approach.
All right. On that note, thank you very much, Professor Swasthi Rao, Ambassador Mohan Kumar, for joining us in this broadcast and sharing your perspective. And that's all for this edition of special broadcast of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Mauritius. News and updates continue after a short break. Namaskar.